Oh yeah, I forgot to set the arrow right here. As you can tell from our design, we actually have an arrow right here, and so we actually don't have to set that. Okay, and to do that, we're gonna go actually to the table view again. Well, not table view, the cell. We're gonna click this. We're gonna set the accessory view to disclose indicator. Now our arrow should show. Now let's go back and keep adding our necessary views. Okay, what else? What else do we need? Okay, so now we need the stars rating and its label. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can actually create this UI. You can use a stack view to add the stars. You can simply just add each individual image, or you could do something else. But for right now, what I'm going to choose is to use basic images. Basic images because that's a little bit simpler, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be simpler for you since you probably don't have exposure right now to using probably the stack view yet, the UI stack view yet. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Just use images for this. Okay, so let's do that. Let's grab, I just simply copy this, copy and paste this, move it down. You know what? Before I do that, let me actually add the images to this project so we can actually see a little bit of what of our UI actually built it. So we're gonna go to the asset and we're gonna just grab all of the necessary images. We added a fill star and an unfill star. You're also gonna add the fill heart, the pancake recipe image, and one more recipe, and the grilled cheese recipe image. And now let's go back to the storyboard. Time to load. Okay, now let's just go and add the, what's that called? Oh yeah, feel like. So we have that image in. Now let's add the unstar, the unfill star. Okay. Now if you click this, and you can see there's a bunch of different lines right here. Now that tells you that one, we have duplicate constraints that we're gonna need to delete. Right here we have an extra ratio constraint. We can just select either one and delete it. Okay, now it's still complaining. Well, Xcode is still complaining that this isn't filled all the way. So let's continue to add the images, and eventually we should resolve all these constraints. So for now, we're going to just copy and paste this image and just move it into place. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, looks good. Now let's add the constraints between the stars. And for that, we're going to use a horizontal spacing. Let's set the horizontal spacing to let's try 14. We're going to just see how that looks. Keep adding the horizontal spaces. 14. Horizontal space. 14 and last star. Horizontal space. 14. Okay. Okay, now. Oh, you know what? I actually want to update its. Actually want to update its height, but now I'm going to have to update all of the heights. You know what? Another way, instead of updating each individual image height, what we're going to do, we're going to delete all of the height constraints. We're going to add one constraint. That what we're going to do is add equals. Do we have an equal? Here we go. Equal height. You're going to set all of them to have an equal height except the first one, and then we're going to add the first image is going to have a constraint, a height constraint. Right. We're going to set this one to 20. All of them should update since they all have the equal height now. And we also are going to add, going to provide center vertical. Vertical, okay. And we're going to have to add a constraint between the main image and star images. And we should add one more constraint, and it should fix it. There we go. No conflicts, and it looks pretty good. Now we're going to have to add the label to show how many reviews we have. What we're going to do is pretty much kind of do the exact same thing for the stars. We're going to add a center vertical and horizontal space, and then add a horizontal space between the label and the container, the super container. Add a trailing, click the constraint, update it to 0. Yeah, there we go. Now, what else do we have to add? We're going to add the description label. Okay, let's see. Add description. And this one's going to be pretty simple. We're going to add a constraint between the main image, horizontal space, a horizontal space, well, vertical space between the label and the stars, and a trailing space between the container. Don't forget to update constraint to 0. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's see. It's an 8. Make sure it's consistent. There we go. Pretty much have the main UI completely laid out in Storyboard. But now what we're going to do is start to change the design look. So you're going to start adding the bold for the main title, the gray colors for these count labels, and that's about it. Yeah. Okay, let's see. That ends part 2. In part 2, we've updated our design in Storyboard to match our design file more closely by updating some of the colors and updating some of the elements. And we've also added a custom UITableViewCell and linked our elements outlets from our storyboard to that subclass. In part 3, we're going to update our UITableView subclass, our main view controller, with the necessary code to drive our UITableViewCells, and possibly do a little bit of debugging along the way. If you get stuck at any moment and you'd like to see the code, for this project, don't forget to go to the description for this video and navigate to the GitHub repository. That way you can see the code and even download the Xcode project and run the code for yourself. If you have any comments or suggestions of how I should change things or update things, or even a new series I should create, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Remember to subscribe and add the notifications so you don't miss out on the next episode, part 3 of this series.